Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good start of week 9. Pretty much what I'm going to talk about this morning is really, it deals with week 9 and week 10, but there's a bigger aspect of it because we're getting into the research paper, and over the next, really, all of October, most of, a good bit of November, it's going to be devoted to this particular project. And there's a couple of components that go along with this particular project as we get closer to the final draft, of course. We will talk about sort of the first assignment that goes along with the research paper here momentarily. The other thing is just some sort of housekeeping tips. Remember today, the 13th of October, by 11:59 tonight, Essay 3, your midterm respondus essay is due. Some of y'all have already turned those in, and I appreciate that. Keep in mind, I did send out 2 previous extra credit chances. One was the instructional survey. Remember, I need to, I didn't really have a quote unquote deadline on when that needs to be due, but I mean, if you want the points, right, I'm giving you 5 points really toward Essay 3. But if you do really well on Essay 3, I've either put it on Essay 1 or Essay 2. But you need to get those in, right, if you want the extra credit. Again, it's optional. Some of y'all have done that. I have a list. So once I grade your Essay 3, if I feel like it needs to go there, I'll put the 5 points there. If I feel like you did really well on Essay 3 and would benefit from putting the 5 points on Essay 1 or Essay 2, I will do that. The other thing is, some of y'all did the respondus verification, which was basically just to check to make sure that you can, download respondus on your particular device. You can follow the instructions that it gives you. You don't have any, issues with Blackboard or your computer or whatever the case may be. Keep in mind, you need to use either a desktop or a laptop for respondus. It doesn't work really well with iPads. There's problems, when students try to use an iPad. It won't really work too well, and it definitely doesn't work well with any type of cell phone. So those are the 2 things that you can't really use for respondus. If you need to, like I said, today is the last day. If you don't trust your equipment, if your internet is kind of shaky, if you don't have a webcam or a web mic, then you have up until 6 o'clock, depending on where your closest Coastal Pines Technical College library is. You can use the equipment that we have there, but keep in mind, some may close a little earlier. Most libraries and testing centers, I think, are 7:30 to 6, basically Monday through Thursday. So, I mean, you'd have roughly up to 6 to complete that. Again, I probably wouldn't roll in there at 5:30 and thinking you're going to be able to type from scratch 5 paragraphs in 1 hour, though. I would at least give myself some time, especially if you're having to take off from work or if you're having to travel a distance. I mean, if you live in Darien or Jekyll or St. Simons or something, you'd probably want to use the Brunswick campus. If you live somewhere closer to the Jessup or the Waycross campus, you probably want to use them. Same thing with Camden. It's one of those, it's a one and done thing. I can't extend the deadline. It has to be done today. So if you don't do it by the 11:59, I guess you're just going to have to kind of live with the zero. Um, the other thing, like I said, that respondus verification, that was really the first bit of extra credit that I provided. Some of y'all did that. Those that didn't, remember I kept that window open for about 2 or 3 weeks. I kept on moving that down from one thing to the next or changing the deadline. So if you didn't do it, then you just lost your chance of getting 5 points there. I will add probably at least one more extra credit. That's going to be worth up to 10 points. It deals with library orientation, pre-test, and post-test. I'll give you some more information on that as the week moves along, or weeks. It really deals with your research, getting your sources and stuff as it relates to the annotated bib, which is really the second component to the research paper, that you're going to need those 6 scholarly sources while you start drafting and finalizing the research paper as we get closer to that first week of December. Stuff that we'll talk about here momentarily, because what I'm going to show you here is going to sort of do an overview of some of these assignments that we're going to have to do between now and the end of the semester, basically. So, just top of my head, I know we got 2 more quizzes that are sort of spaced out. Not counting the midterm that's due today. If we do count it, I guess that's 3. Proposal is going to be 4. The actual research paper is 5. And then we got 3 sets of the annotated bib, 1, 2, and 3, which is 8. So if you look at it, if you're counting the midterm, we basically have 8 assignments left, which basically makes sense because we roughly have about 8 weeks left. So, nearly an assignment a week, give or take. That's all we have. The other thing is, and I mentioned this, I think, in previous videos and announcements and emails, is at this point, if you look, we've taken, 2 quizzes. I will drop. Now, you can wait until we get closer to Thanksgiving, but I will need to know before we get a Thanksgiving break. Otherwise, I'm just going to go in there and drop one for you. But I will drop only 1 assignment. And it has to be a low stake assignment, meaning it can't be a major essay. I can't drop essay 1, I can't drop essay 3. It has to either be one of your peer reviews that you didn't do so well on, or one of the quizzes that you didn't do so well on. I can't do both, has to be one. So at this point, notice, we still have 1 more peer review to go as it relates to the research paper if there's time, and we still got 2 more quizzes. But if you want me to go ahead and drop something now, you're going to have to email me and tell me, hey, I want to drop, Mr. Wilson, I want to drop peer review 2. Or, hey, Mr. Wilson, I want to drop quiz 1. I need to know which one you want me to drop so I can go ahead. You can see that reflection in your grade. Now, is it going to be a big reflection? Probably not, unless you're borderline somewhere. Meaning if you're borderline between a D and a C, you'd probably you'd probably go over from your D to your C. If you're borderline between a B and an A, you probably go over to your A. Now, if you got like an 85 and I drop something, it's probably going to pull you up to maybe an 87 or an 88. So it will bring you up, but it's not going to if I drop this because I got an 85, I'll probably have a 93 now. No, it's not going to work that way. So if you want me to go ahead and drop something now, it has to be either one of your quizzes that we've already taken, or it has to be one of the peer reviews that you've already completed. Otherwise, you're free to kind of wait, because I think by the time we get to Thanksgiving week, you would have really the last peer review, again, granted we have time for it, and the one quiz. So by then you will, and usually by the time we get to Thanksgiving, you can kind of tell where your grade is really heading. It starts to stabilize then, because we basically only have about 2 or 3 weeks left of the semester after that. All right, so the research paper, it's a big chunk of your grade, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically show you, if you look, modular 3 is where you're going to find your stuff for the midterm. All right, this is your topics. Again, you can use a essay outline, you can use note cards, you just can't have a pre-written draft already. You have to type this thing within that 60 minutes, so you're basically typing from scratch, start to finish, using only the note cards and the outline. Again, that stuff is optional. You don't have to have it, but it'll probably be useful because a lot of people think that they can just sit down and write on a particular topic. But when you have the timer going and, maybe you kind of waiting later in the evening to do it or whatever the case may be, it could be kind of problematic on you. So you'd find you click on here, go through that information. They provide a text box where you're going to have to, you're not going to see it on my end, but there's going to be a text box here that you just type, because you're not going to be able to use Microsoft Word once you get locked down in that browser. You're not going to be able to go anywhere once you're locked down in the browser until you finish that test. So just make sure that gets done by 11:59 tonight, so you're not having to take a big chunk, because this is a big chunk. Midterm essay is a big chunk of your grade. So you could lose, up to 20 points of your current average if this thing, if you get a 0 on this thing. So what I did was I went ahead and opened up modular 4, because again, some of y'all took the midterm essay last week. So if y'all want to get ahead, I went ahead and opened up some of modular 4. Now, as we get closer to the annotated bib stuff, because you're not going to be able to see a lot of this stuff on your end because it's still hidden. But as we get closer to some of these dates, I will start opening up more. A lot of times folks get kind of, I don't know, anxious about the research paper, probably because maybe they haven't really written a college level research paper in a while. I'm hoping, for those that are in dual enrollment, y'all have done some sort of a college prep type English class in high school where you have, written a research paper, or at least sort of taught through how to do this stuff. I mean, really, that's what high school English, the college prep, some of those advanced, English classes should be teaching you how to write at the college level and dealing with research papers, because in a lot of ways, that's really where your grades start to come from in a lot of these courses, especially depending on how, further you're going to go with your college education. You're going to see more and more less on tests and less on quizzes and more on how well can you write, how well can you think critically and analytically and that type of stuff, dealing with multiple sources and, multiple people and research and that type of stuff. So if you look, click here, that's going to take you to the actual sort of instructions, and I'm going to sort of give you another take on this. This tells you a little bit more about what the research paper is all about, the length, how many words, the sources, and again, I'm going to come back to this here momentarily. You also, once you have a topic in mind, you can start looking at the proposal, which is really the first part of the research paper. And you notice there's 5 questions. We're going to talk about this here momentarily. I do give you sort of a sample A quality proposal that a student has done a few years ago. So if you kind of follow that, even though your topic's going to be different, you should be on your way to your A, at least I hope. So really, the introduction to the research paper, right? you're looking at this thing, and this is basically sort of my notes taking from, both the proposal assignment and that actual research paper instructions. So it's the inquiry into the everyday researching, the familiar, right? Research paper project is supported by 3 essential components that scaffold the major assignment and promote deeper engagement with scholarly research. So the first, like I said, the first part of this assignment is going to be the research paper proposal. It's not your actual research paper. So don't get that confused. I have a lot of students that turn in an 8-page proposal when they get it confused. They think it's time to turn in the research paper. You're turning the research paper, the final draft, the first week of December. We're leading up to that, right? The first part is the research paper proposal. And this is going to be due really the last week of October. If you look in your syllabus or the assignment checklist, it will tell the date. I believe it's the Sunday, the 26th, I believe. I think that's the Sunday by 11:59 that your proposal has to be turned in. The problem is you're not going to be able to really do too much with your proposal until you actually have a research paper topic chosen. So I'm not really giving you a whole bunch of topics. I want you to kind of think about it. We'll talk a little bit more about, how to go about doing that. But, you're an adult at this point. You're a college level student. I mean, I can help you brainstorm some topics, or if you really need some topics, I can give you some suggestions, but I really want you to start thinking on your own at this point. Think about what, you like to learn more about, what you like to research. Can you find at least 6 sources? Because everybody has a different thinking style, learning style. They have a different passion. I don't want to say, hey, everybody has to do this research paper topic, or everybody's got to do this one. I want to give you a chance to have a little bit of academic freedom there, within bounds, obviously. But I want to see how well you can go out there and find this stuff. So the research paper proposal is going to be the first assignment and is due the last week of October. We just sort of talked about that. Proposal is your opportunity to articulate your research question, outline your plan of approach, and demonstrate preparation by listing at least 3 reliable scholarly sources. We'll talk a little bit about that here momentarily because it deals with some of the questions that are on that particular assignment sheet. The research paper Annotated Bib Sets 1, 2, and 3. These will be due throughout the month of November, leading up to the final one being completed and turned in before we go to Thanksgiving break. This is where you're going to engage with your 6 required scholarly sources. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. In depth, submitting annotated bibliography sets that details each source, the argument, the credibility, and the value to your project. These assignments ensure that the research is conducted thoroughly, step by step, and rather than all at once. So again, I'm going to give you some information about how to go about using Galileo, how to use our databases, how to check out books, how to find scholarly journal articles, that type stuff. There's going to be one basically that comes from our head librarian that's going to sort of talk you through that. And that's where some of the extra credit is also going to come, because I'm going to give you a pre-test and a post-test dealing with that library orientation. And then, of course, you have the final draft of the research paper, which is going to be the polish paper, right? Which is due the first week of December. Again, if you look on your checklist, you will see the actual date. This draft should synthesize your inquiry, analysis, and research findings into a cohesive and compelling argument. So if you look, really what the research paper is going to boil down to, again, by structuring the assignment in these stages, the process supports meaningful inquiry and strong academic writing. In a lot of ways, you shouldn't be rushed if you take your time and do what you need to do each week. The way I have this set up is you really can't wait till the last minute to do the actual research paper, because you're going to have things due before you turn in that final draft. And you need that, first two assignments to kind of be able to help you write that final draft as well. So again, this will lead into an early topic exploration to final synthesis and reflection. So the research paper assignment is titled Inquiry into the Everyday, Researching the Familiar, which is designed to guide you, the student, in uncovering complex insights from ordinary life, right? The goal is to select a personally meaningful topic, something routinely encountered or experienced, and investigate it in a scholarly way to reveal hidden layers, contradictions, or deep significance. Again, I'm kind of letting this be wide open as long as you think you can find 6 scholarly sources to back up your main points. Because here, when we get into sort of the core requirements, you're going to have to write more than just 5 paragraphs, right? You're going to have to probably write at least 15 plus paragraphs, depending on how long your paragraphs are to meet the word count and the page length. The process invites critical thinking and connects everyday experiences to broader social, cultural, historical, or scientific context. So the core requirements of the paper, obviously you're still going to have to use the MLA9 format that you've been using for the last 3 papers. You want to type using Times New Roman size 12 font, 1-inch margins all around your particular document, double space everything, proper paragraph indentions. You want to have a header. You want to have a research paper title. That's not just called research paper. Center of the first page. You're going to have a works cited page. You want to have your last name and page numbers in the upper top right hand corner of every page. Some of y'all are losing easy points still, 8 weeks in, because you're just not following the basic MLA9 essay format that we talked about the first 2 weeks of the semester. So, I mean, right there, I'm basically taking, nearly 10 points. So you're losing a letter grade when you're not setting your paper up right. That's basically what I'm getting. Like I said, that should be the easy stuff, not the hard stuff. The body of your essay should be 6 to 8 pages. And when I mean 6 to 8 pages, I really mean 6 to 8 pages. I don't mean 3 pages, and I don't mean 12. So try to keep it between 6 and 8 if possible. So that equals up to about 1,500 to 2,000 words. And of course, you're going to have at least 6 scholarly sources, and you will need 2 scholarly books, 2 scholarly journal articles, which you should be able to find those from either a public library, right, the college library, or if you're a dual enrollment student, you could probably use your high school library. Now, the other 2 deal with your scholarly websites, which, anything .org, .gov, .edu would be probably beneficial and helpful. You can use .com sites, but you want to be careful because not every .com site is what we will, call academic or scholarly. Like Wikipedia, you can't quote from Wikipedia. It's not really a scholarly or academic source you can use. Now, if the article on that page is very well written, and usually they are, because there's a lot of people that edit and add stuff on a daily basis, there's going to be a works cited or a reference page down below. And a lot of times, those references are scholarly in nature, meaning they will link you to a book or a journal article or a website. Now, you can use that stuff. You can kind of piggyback off of there. But to actually use whatever Wikipedia is giving you on the page, there's just too many people that edit and come on there all the time that we can't verify if the person that's, actually uploading or typing something there or taking something down is really an expert. But when in question, always email me or talk to a librarian. They will help you out. So really the research to get started with this, so you can get thinking about, answering those 5 questions when it relates to your research paper proposal, is the whole process of the research paper, which the first one, as it says here, topic selection and curiosity. Students begin by identifying a topic rooted in daily life, personal interest, or ongoing observations. The selected topic must be personally significant and allow connection to larger issues. Reflect on questions such as what common experiences have yet to be fully understood, which everyday assumptions need to be challenged, what topics inspire curiosity or passion. This encourages moving beyond surface observations and developing inquiries grounded in authentic interest. So once you pick a topic and have curiosity and passion about it, your next step is to come up, have a research question that you can then answer and turn into your research paper thesis. Now, that again, early on, your thesis to the research paper is probably going to be tentative, meaning you're probably going to have to change it several times before you submit that final draft in December, which is okay. But you need to have a thesis statement so we know where you plan on taking us on this particular journey of your paper. So the next step involves narrowing the focus to a pointed research question. This is not a simple factual question, but one that provokes exploration, analysis, and debate. From this questioning emerges a thesis, a clear, arguable, keyword, arguable position that will guide the research and structure the argument. So you might want to think about this research paper being more or less like an argumentative paper. Right? You're arguing something on paper. From there, you want to start thinking about gathering your research. Again, not only for your annotated bibs, which you're going to have to do throughout the month of November, but so that you can start reading through your 6 sources, picking out quotations that you plan on either directly or as paraphrases throughout your 6 to 8 page research paper. Because the whole point of doing the annotated bib is to help you collect the 6 best sources on your topic that you plan on using throughout your paper. Keyword, research, right? It's a research paper. It's not an essay 1 or essay 2 or essay 3. If your research paper in December does not have quotations or a works cited page or paraphrasing or parenthetical / in-text citation, then you did not follow instructions from the get. You did not write a research paper. You wrote just a regular old essay, and you're going to lose probably about 40 points right off the bat. So the highest grade you can make at that point would be a 60. So make sure that you follow the instructions and you get your research. Right, as we move along. You don't have to wait till a lot of this stuff is due. You can start if you have a particular paper topic in mind. If you're unsure about it, or you want to run it by me, you can email me and I can tell you yay or nay. But really, when we get to the proposal in 2 weeks, that's going to be the green light. Once you submit the proposal, that's your topic until the end of the semester. I wouldn't be, flip-flopping back and forth. That's why I'm giving you 2 weeks to really kind of think about what your topic wants to be, because you're going to be married to your topic when we get to the 27th of October, and that's your baby or that's your spouse or however you want to look at it until this thing is due the first week of December. The third step, academic research and evidence. Use scholarly research sources, books, articles, and vetted web sources that you're going to collect evidence. Right? That's where you're going to get your information from. Each source should be specific, kind of credible, or perspective, whether logical, data and argument, emotional, personal narratives or case studies, or ethical, expert testimony. Again, that's where some of this logos, ethos, and pathos start to come back. It's important to evaluate each source for reliability and relevance. Integrate findings smoothly into the argument. We will talk a little bit as we get closer to, or really throughout the month of November, how to quote directly, parenthetically and in text as it relates to MLA 9, how to do paraphrasing, how to do summary, how to do the works cited page, all that stuff. Critically reflect on contradictions or complexity uncovered during research. The fourth part is the analytical style and structure. Students must consider not just what evidence they will use, but how they will present and analyze it. This includes determining the progression of paragraphs and argument, right? Chronological, thematic, or comparative, right? You can do maybe like a compare and contrast argument or a pro and con or a problem solution kind of argument. Use of personal anecdote where relevant. Again, be careful. We're not turning this into another essay one. This is not a personal narrative / description. It's not a process analysis. It's not a rhetorical analysis, right? It's a research paper that needs to have some argumentative qualities to it. Which if you looked at some of the videos and stuff and some of these modulars over the last few weeks, you would have learned and watched about various different rhetorical modes of writing that you can employ when doing this research paper. The balance of narrative and analysis, and a strong research paper blends summary, critical evaluation, and self-reflection. And then you're going to have sort of this reflective purpose, which is really the last sort of step before you proofread, edit, and you really polish your rough draft and transform it into that one that you're proud of, that you want to submit in and get the highest grade possible. So the reflective purpose is really going to be the heart of the assignment. It's not just what was discovered, but why it matters, both to the writer, which would be you, and to the audience, which would be me, ultimately, because I'm going to be the one grading it. But as we get closer to the peer review later at the end of November, your peers in the class. The reflection on so what grounds the research in relevance and invites readers to find their own connections. So in a nutshell, that's sort of the introduction to the actual research paper project. You're going to have to kind of think about your own topic. Again, if you're sort of stuck on that, you can always go to Google. And what I would type in here is college level research paper topics, and you could put maybe 2025. And as you can tell, you're going to find a lot of different, right here, AI is kind of helping us, right? You might be able to find something there. Technology and AI is really a big thing at this point. These sort of break it down to categories: environment, society and culture, economics and business, education and human connection. That's just some there. But if you scroll on down, you're going to see more, right? Here's one, 300 plus research paper topics. So if you click there, now be careful, because some of these are going to take you to like paper mills. And I don't want you to use these as it relates to, I don't want you to hire somebody here that you don't know what their degree is, even though they can claim they have a master's or higher. But basically what they're going to want is your money, whether it's a check, bank information, credit card. But I don't want you to use them to write the paper, because again, that's cheating. It's like using AI as cheating. But you can read some of this stuff on here, because they do print out some pretty decent information about how to approach a research paper. But they also give you some pretty good topics that you can kind of use, because you're not really, you're not asking them to write the paper. You're just trying to get some ideas so that you can write the paper. And a lot of times they break it down in categories too. Like here we got some chemistry and biology. Maybe that's something that you're interested in. Physics, zoology, health and medicine, sports research. This is just one page, because if you go back, you're going to find that there's other pages you can kind of click on. I probably wouldn't, if you look here, it's going to go on past 10 pages, obviously. I probably wouldn't go maybe past the first 3 or 4, because what I see and what a lot of other students see is that these like to duplicate. It's just on a different page. They may change a word or use a synonym or whatever the case may be. But really, by the time you get to about the 3rd or 4th page, you're basically just seeing the same stuff over again. So I would look maybe the first 2 pages and see what you can find. If you need, something to get you sort of started. Some folks need that. Some folks already have sort of, a topic in mind and are passionate about a certain thing that they want to, write about already. Either way is fine. Again, you can take the next couple weeks, sort of do like preliminary research, Google your topic, see what's out there, see if it's something you would like to do for the remainder of the remainder of the semester, because that's the big thing. Because after you get it sort of approved, quote unquote, from the proposal, November is going to be just a good month of, going out and finding your sources, reading your sources, highlighting the stuff that you plan on using in the paper. And then you're going to start taking probably about the time, middle of November until the first week of December, drafting and finalizing the paper. So if you don't like your topic, by the time we get into the middle of November, then you're kind of SOL, as they say, because that's why I'm giving you now until the 26th when you have to turn in a research paper proposal detailing what you plan on doing with that topic. That's why I want you to kind of use your time wisely and really do some research and see what's out there before you really commit to something that you may regret, here in another month. And that's the problem. If you decide, November 10th, oh, I really don't like the topic I have. Can I do this topic because I found more information? You can do that, I guess, but guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to go back and redo your proposal because now you're picking a different topic. So I'm going to have to mark that grade, whatever you made on that one proposal. I'm going to have to give it a 0 until you give me a new one. And then depending on how much you got into the annotated bib assignment, you may have to do all that over. So you're just you're screwing yourself up if you wait to finally realize, oh, November 10th, I really don't like to do this topic. I want to do something else. Well, I would suggest that you should have thought that out before the 26th of October, which is the reason why I'm giving you 2 weeks to kind of do that. So the research paper proposal. As you can tell, when you go back and look at your actual assignment sheet, there's going to be a series of questions and some hints. You need to answer those questions to the best of your ability based on your actual research paper topic that you chose. So the proposal is a planning document for the main research paper. And sort of these 5 questions here, 5 steps, are basically based on those 5 questions. The thesis and research question. Clearly state what you will be arguing or exploring. The question must raise general debate and go beyond trivial insights. Your plan of support. Describe the method and style, types of analysis, writing to be used. Expect organization of paragraphs and blend of evidence, meaning, again, a lot of times when folks get to that question 2, sometimes they have a hard time of really describing how they're going to approach the research paper, meaning, are you going to do, besides maybe an argumentative style paper, are you going to do a cause and effect paper? Are you going to do a compare and contrast? Are you going to do a problem solution? That type of stuff is what I'm looking at or looking for. Sources. Now, again, by the time we get here next month, you probably need to have read and collected all 6 sources, because then we're going to be really involved with that annotated bib. You do have 2 weeks, and depending on how well you use your time, there is a possibility that you could probably get all 6 of your sources between now and the 26th. Now, I realize everybody's probably got multiple classes. You got things going on outside, kids, wife, all that. I get it. I have that same deal going on. But you still have to sort of, take one day at a time and go through it. So basically what I'm getting at, as it relates to the question on the proposal, you don't necessarily have to have read all 6 by the time you have to turn it in, but I would like to know that you have at least included 3 scholarly sources, that you have read at least 3 by then. Because again, you don't want to get sort of behind on getting these sources and reading them, because that's going to be a big bulk of what you have to do on your own outside of whatever else we got to do on Blackboard. Because, I have 6 classes. Most of you are doing research papers. Everybody has a different topic. I don't have time to go out there and read, let's say, 60 students' 6 sources. I mean, that's like having to go through and read nearly 400 sources for everybody. I don't have that time. I mean, you're going to have to go out and you're going to have to do some critical thinking and analytical thinking and critical writing and analytical writing, and you're going to have to go through this process on your own. That's part of the whole research paper process at the college level. Less hand-holding on my part and more exploring, and you're sort of doing the deal, right? You're going out, you're going to the library, you're checking out the books, you're printing out stuff from Galileo, you're reading the materials online and printing stuff out that you think would be relevant. You're using a highlighter to highlight the quotes from that particular source that you want to use, in, let's say in paragraph 9 or whatever. So you're having to go through all this stuff, right? Number 4, it's going to ask you your best source and needed sources. So by the time you get to number 4, again, depending on if you have all 6 or if you only have the, what I'm calling the sort of the minimum 3 at that point, you're going to identify which current source is the most promising and explain why. Note which types of sources, data, stats, interviews, optional or opinion pieces will further strengthen your project. So again, when we look at the actual assignment sheet here momentarily, I will break some of this down a little bit more. And then you're going to have that last sort of question dealing with motivation and relevance. You want to articulate the personal significance of the topic and explain its wider importance to potential readers. So if you look, this 5-part structure not only clarifies the intended direction of your particular research and research paper, but also anticipates challenges and opportunities for both critical insight and meaningful connection. So in conclusion, this assignment, being the proposal, will emphasize the transformation of familiar experiences through academic inquiry, grounded in robust research and reflective analysis, the use of diverse sources, adherence to the MLA9 format still, and I'm going to show you how that's going to be, and thoughtful proposal planning are key to a successful research paper that bridges personal experiences and scholarly understanding. So if we go back to this particular, this is the research paper proposal. Again, I believe this is going to be due in 2 weeks, which would be the October 26th, Sunday by 11:59. Each one of these questions are going to be worth 20 points. So you need to answer these questions. What I would suggest is once you pick a research paper topic that you know that you're going to be happy with and you want to stick with it long term, go through and see if you can answer some of these. If you can only answer like the first 2 or 3, then you probably either need to do a little bit more research on that topic, or you need to pick a different topic that you can answer. Because again, if you can only answer 3 of these, and the highest you're going to get, depending on, you don't have any issues with grammar and, spelling and that stuff, would be a 60, which would be a D. And I know most of y'all don't want to, make a D on this first particular part of your research paper. So, like I said, number 1, what is your thesis or research question? The thing about your topic you want to find out. Your topic must be opinionated, well phrased, and formulated rather than a petty observation and about your topic. Number 2, how do you plan on to support this thesis or research question? I give you a hint, right? This question does not really focus on the sources you will use, but it is a question of the techniques, types of paragraphs, style you plan on employing. It is like an analysis of your analytical style. You can briefly outline your paper here if you would like. So if you want to give me like a short version of your outline to your paper, that could possibly, help answer question 2. 3, what 6 outside scholarly sources do you plan on using? Again, by the time we get to the 26th, if you have read all 6, great. But what I'm really looking at here, like I said in the hint, you don't have to have read all of them, but try to have at least 3 reliable sources. So that could be 1 scholarly book, 1 scholarly journal article, 1 scholarly website. That would leave you to find 3 more of the same before we really get into the annotated bibs. Number 4, what is the best source at this stage? What makes it the best source? What sources do you think you might need? Again, if you only have the 3, at that point you would tell me which one would be at that stage, which one is your best, why is it your best, and what are the other 3 that you would need? Because again, ultimately you're going to need to have at least 6 as we get closer to drafting and finalizing the research paper. And then really number 5, what is the whole point of the topic? What motivated you to pursue this topic? so what question that a lot of us have to ask, and hopefully our audience can answer. And so, a lot of times the writer can answer as well. What do you care about? Why do you care about this topic? Why should your readers, your peers care about your topic? Don't be fooled by how short this question is, because it's the vital importance of your next step as we go from your proposal to the annotated bib. So as you can tell here, this is Marvin's sample. And really, the way you can look at it, since I give you 5 questions, each one of these paragraphs represent the answers to these questions in order. So the answer to question 1 becomes Marvin's first paragraph. The answer to question 2 is Marvin's second paragraph. Question 3, 4, and 5, so on and so forth. So in a lot of ways, your proposal is basically, once you answer your question, you can set it up. If you go in order, which would be the right way that you want to do it, will resemble like a 5-paragraph themed paper. Again, you're not doing a research paper here at this point. You're not doing really a formal essay. You're answering these questions. Your paragraphs are becoming, the answers to those particular questions. So if you go in order, you should be pretty good, right? You want to have some sort of a sample title. You want to have your header. Again, I don't have the last name and page number, but you're going to want that up here in your top right-hand corner. And you're going to want to indent your paragraphs, obviously, and double space everything. So if you're looking at, well, how many pages is that? Roughly between 1 and 2 pages. So I'm looking at maybe between 250 and 500 words when it comes to the proposal. Now, if you can answer those 5 questions and do so where I'm not having to scratch my head and say, well, he left something out from question 1. If you can answer these questions and cover everything that you need to cover with these 5 questions in just 1 page, go for it. Most folks need to go at least 1.5 to 2 pages, though. I will tell you that. All right. So this is pretty much, this is the actual project's going to take us from this week all the way to the first week of December. But your next big assignment after the midterm essay will be this research paper proposal again in 2 weeks. I have to look to see when your next quiz is going to happen. I think we got a little bit of time. Your last quiz is going to happen sometime leading into the final exam week, December. It looks like December 8th. That deals mainly with documentation, quoting, paraphrasing, works cited page, that type stuff. But I believe you got one more grammar quiz. Well, you might have already did it, which was quiz 3. So as it relates to the grammar stuff, we're done with that. You just got one more quiz that really relates to the research aspect of the course. All right. So again, please email me if you have any questions about the research paper. If you want to run by some topics with me, an outline with me, if you want to talk a little bit more about the proposal, please give me an email. I will be happy to assist you the best way I can. As it relates to the midterm essays, everything right now is up to date grade-wise, except for essay 3. I will have to go through and start grading those. Again, if you did some extra credit, you can get some extra credit toward that particular grade, essay 3, or if you do really well. The problem with Blackboard, sometimes it won't let you go beyond 100. So that's why I may have to put that +5 to an essay 1 or essay 2, because let's say that you had say you did really well in essay 3 and you got a 98. Well, if you did the extra credit, that's +5. Well, that's going to take you over 100. And sometimes the program screws up. So what I would do is I would leave that 98, and let's say essay 2 you made a 75. I would just take those 5 points and just put it on that 75. So in a lot of ways, it doesn't really matter so much where I put those points as it relates to your essays, because if you did the extra credit, I'm going to give you the points, and it's just going to, it's going to increase your grade little by little as we move along. All right. I hope everybody has a good week 9. I hope your midterms and basically the rest of your classes are going well. I hope life is going well. I will probably come back in another week, maybe during week 11, to really start talking about the second component, which is the annotated bib sets, because there you're going to have a set due pretty much about every Sunday, except maybe one. There might be one that's due on a Monday as we lead into our Thanksgiving break. All right. I hope everybody has a great rest of your week and a great Monday. Talk soon.